The entrepreneurial spirit is resilient, and U.S. Bank is here to make sure that no matter what unknown pops up, business owners know that we have their back. Because problem solvers are the ones that keep us all moving forward by finding ways to close gaps, even when distances are being kept everywhere. So whatever you need to adapt and evolve your business, U.S. Bank is here to support you. U.S. Bank. We'll get there together. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Hello and welcome to another edition of DFS Today, presented by Hoop Ball. I am your host, your host for this evening's slate for Friday night, David Menkov, and I'm joined for the first time. Very excited to be joined by the one and only Will, also known as Bill. How are you tonight?
I'm great, David. Glad to finally be doing our first show together, and you can expect to hear both of us together on Thursday from now on, hopefully.
Absolutely, I'm looking forward to it. We have a nice little 9-gamer to get everyone excited for the weekend, so we're looking forward to it. And I think we can jump right into the first game of the night. We have a little 7 p.m. showdown. Indiana Pacers travel to take on the Orlando Magic in this one. As far as spread and line is concerned, there's nothing available yet. From an injury news perspective, we have some injury news to report. Miles Turner continues to be out for the Pacers, as well as TJ Warren. And then some questionable tags. We have Malcolm Brogdon coming up as questionable, and Domantas Sabonis. So 2 key names to look at. And then on the Magic side of the ball, we have Markelle Fultz, who continues to be out, Jonathan Isaac out, Kareem Maine out, and Otto Porter Jr. all out for the Magic. So with that said, Will, tell us, who's your top picks on the Indiana Pacers side?
Well, my top guys, I have 2 main guys, but and that would be TJ McConnell at 5,600 because the price is so good. Even though he came off the bench last game, he had 19 points and 15 assists. Anybody that can put up numbers like that, you got to consider him in your lineup. And especially if Brogdon is out and Sabonis is out, that's just more production left for the other guys. So, when you look at the price of Caris LeVert at 7,600, initially you think that's a little high for what he produces. But, again, if Brogdon and Sabonis are both out and Miles Turner is out, I can see his production going up from the mid-30s in DraftKings points to maybe the mid-40s. So that makes his price at 7,600 a little more worth it to me. And the other guy I'm looking at a super great value is Gogo Bitadze. His last 2 games, he's been playing great production. And like I said, if Sabonis and Miles Turner are out, it's just easy work for him. At 3,800, he could possibly be the steal of the night. What do you think about the Pacers side of things?
I love it. I feel like we are in sync right off the bat. I think we can just end the show now, it seems like. I am with you across the board. I have to say, on the Pacers, with Brogdon potentially out, Sabonis and Turner, got to lock and load Caris LeVert. I know a lot of people might not be as prone to play in LeVert, especially against the Magic, but 7,600, that price tag, he has 50-point upside. We've seen it a few games ago. With Brogdon not doing any of the playmaking, Caris LeVert's going to have to step up and really provide that extra burst for them. So I love that call. And, of course, Goga Bitadze, 3,800. That price tag just seems a little too low for how many minutes he's been getting recently. With Turner out, he got 25 minutes in the last one against the T-Wolves. In this one, if he gets 25 minutes, he should smash that price tag. So I love that call, too. And then that's it. That's pretty much it. I think we're lockstep when we talk about the Pacers. Jumping onto the Orlando Magic side of the ball, who do you like on the Orlando side?
I think you have to consider Wendell Carter Jr. It seems like the team is clearing a path for him to be that starting center they've been looking for. with the replacement of Vucevic being gone because they recently released Kim Birch. So it's just him and Mo Bamba now. So I should expect him to get in the 30-plus minute range, and he could easily put up a double-double, especially if Miles Turner is out. That just makes his job easier. And I think you can look at Chuma Okeke. He had a terrible game last game, but he still played 32 minutes. So as long as he's getting those minutes, I don't expect a repeat performance of that. At 5,800, he's worth it to me. And like we said, with the releasing of Kim Birch, that paves the way for Mo Bamba at 4,200. He should be getting those backup center minutes. And last game, he got 37 DraftKings points in 25 minutes. So, I mean, he'll probably get 20 to 25 minutes. I don't expect him to have 19 points and 8 rebounds again, but he should bring back value for you. I'm scared of the point guards because they're all healthy right now, except Fultz, obviously. But it's kind of crowded for me. What do you think about the situation with the Magic?
Yeah, the Magic is certainly an interesting one. With you touched on it with Kem Birch being released, there's definitely some minutes opening up on the Orlando side in the front court. I love the Wendell Carter call. I was definitely beating the Wendell Carter drum. The second he got traded over to Orlando, I knew this is an opportunity to really bounce back and really show that he's got all that upside, that the reason why he was drafted in the first place at a Duke. So I love Wendell Carter, 6,000. That's a great price tag. And I'm not going to be as keen on Chuma Okeke just because he's still a little bit raw, but I'll probably be looking a little bit more on the price savings for me and go Mo Bamba. Mo Bamba is as risky as they come, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend him for any cash, but certainly in play for tournaments. If the game gets out of hand somehow, if it doesn't stay close, Mo Bamba should get 20-25 minutes, and at 4,200 might be worth a flyer there. And then he touched on the guard play. It's tough with everyone healthy to really trust anyone, but I kind of like Michael Carter-Williams, 5,700. I know that he's been putting up some outrageous numbers recently, 35 and 40 in his last two, with crazy block and steal rates. But he's a guy that, I mean, he's got the hot hand. If Indiana is banged up as they are, he might get plenty of run, and he's going to be low owned on the slate. So it might be another reason why I will look Michael Carter-Williams. But that's about it for me on the Orlando side. So I think before we jump into the next one, just wanted to send a little message. Ever since I started this podcast, people have been asking for betting tips. I always get asked, who you got? Lakers or Clippers, Riders or Mahomes? And I'll tell you what I tell them. Where you bet is just important as who you're betting on. That's why I tell people to bet with MyBookie. MyBookie's rep is rock solid, and they've got the best odds, contests, and promotions in the business. They're the only place I trust to handle my NBA-related bets. The one sportsbook guaranteed to give me the best lines for the Masters this weekend. You know me, and you know that I don't give out my stamp of approval easily. To earn it, you've got to be the best at what you do, and MyBookie is the best sportsbook out there, period. It's simple. Sign up, enter code HoopBall, and get your deposit match halfway up to $1,000. Head over to MyBookie if you want to add a little excitement to the sports you love and the games you bet. Bet with the best, bet with MyBookie. All right, well, let's jump into the next one. In the next game, it's a little 7:30 p.m. start. We have Minnesota Timberwolves traveling to take on the Boston Celtics. We actually do have a game total. It's 228.5, with the Celtics favored by 9.5 points. As far as injuries are concerned, we have a few injuries to note. On the Minnesota side, Malik Beasley is out for foreseeable future. Jalen Noel is doubtful for this one. Josh Okogie is probable. And on the Celtics side, Evan Fournier is out due to health and safety protocols. With that said, who are we looking at on the Minnesota Timberwolves side, given all of their most of the starters are pretty much healthy outside of Malik Beasley? Are you looking at anyone with this high game total?
Yeah, I'm starting mainly with, the Minnesota Timberwolves franchise player, Karl-Anthony Towns. He's priced very expensive at $10,900, but he always can put up production. 2 games ago, he had 70 DraftKings points. So that's what you're looking for. He's kind of averaging in the 50s right now, but he always has that game time potential to get, 60, 70 DraftKings points. So you can always consider him, play around with your lineup, see if you can fit him in there. If not, oh, well, it's 9 games, so you can put somebody else in there. And I'm looking at D'Angelo Russell. If you hadn't heard, he's back. He's played 2 games after being out for 2 months. And his production has not been incredible yet as far as DraftKings production. But in real life basketball, he had 25 points and 17 points. And that's only in 24 minutes. Once those minutes continue to ramp up, which they could in this game against Boston, he's only at 6,300. So he has potential to easily hit value and more. Just keep an eye before tip-off about hearing anything about him, if his minutes are still going to be limited or not. And if they are, you can shy away. But if they're going to ramp his minutes up, I say go ahead and put him in your lineup. And they got him playing at shooting guard right now with Rubio. So I think that'll help his scoring out also to fill in for Malik Beasley's production. And the other guy I'm looking at is Jayden McDaniels. He is at 4,800, and he's getting the minutes. I mean, his production has been pretty good, but like I said, with Beasley out, that's just more production for everyone to go around. And 4,800 is such a cheap price for someone that's going to be getting. Last game he played 37 minutes, so I think he's worth the risk for me if you can play around with putting him in your lineup. Also, you have any other Minnesota Timberwolves?
Honestly, you pretty much nailed them again. So we seem to be in a pretty good groove here as far as guys we like. So I'm with you on everyone. The only other guy I'm looking at on the Timberwolves side, it has to be Anthony Edwards. Given D'Angelo Russell coming back, he's probably going to be overlooked a little bit, but he's still going to get all the minutes he can handle. He's still getting 35, 40 minutes a game, and we've seen he's got 45, 50-point upside. And if this matchup ends up being a blowout, he's going to still get potentially minutes. And that's the only reason why I'm really looking at Anthony Edwards. But I like the Karl-Anthony Towns call. 10,900 is a bit of a high price tag. It's going to be tough to play him on this slate. There are some other guys in the $10,000 range in the front court we'll talk about a little bit later that I like more. But, again, we can't blame anyone for playing Karl-Anthony Towns, especially against the Celtics. He's gonna do everything for them. He's a solid center, one of the best in the league, and he's definitely in a groove right now for Minnesota. It's just too bad he plays for the Timberwolves because he's in a tough spot right now, unfortunately.
Definitely, and yeah, I'm a little scared of playing Anthony Edwards with D'Angelo Russell back. I just don't know what's gonna happen, but he's been very productive, and he should get all the minutes he can handle, like you said. So I wouldn't blame you if you put him in your lineup.
Yeah, it's true, and definitely it's more of a wild card play for me. But yeah, awesome. So talking about flipping over to the other side of the ball, Celtics are huge favorites. Everyone's pretty much healthy for the Celtics now, so it's going to be really tough to trust anyone for DFS in particular. I have my name. I have some guys circled, but I'm curious who do you like on the Celtics side of the ball, if anyone will.
See, I was gonna throw it to you. I'll name my guys. I only named 2 guys who I'm thinking are a good play. So I'll be interested to see who you got in mind. Yeah, like you said, with everyone healthy, it's kind of scary to me, except for Evan Fournier, obviously. But I like Kemba Walker at 6,900. He has that 40-point potential. Obviously, he's doesn't play back-to-back, so he'll be rested and healthy for this game. And I just think anytime you get a starting point guard that's going to be out there for 30-plus minutes, under 7K, that's worth the risk. And then, obviously, you have the Time Lord at 6,500. He has that potential also to get in the 40s of DraftKings points. So at 6,500, I think it's worth it. Tristan Thompson did come back and kind of hurt him a little bit. But I think they will use Robert Williams. I think he's a better matchup for Towns, so I would think he would be out there a little more than Tristan. So that is a risk. It's not a lock, but the price is worth taking a risk for, in my opinion. I don't feel great about it though. So who do you got for Boston? It's sketchy with Boston for me.
Yeah, you touched on it. I mean, this game total is going to probably get people excited, but if you look at it, the Celtics are pretty much healthy at this point outside of Fournier, who has shown that, he's still knocking off that rust since being traded. So as far as the Celtics goes, I usually love playing Kemba. Anytime I can get Kemba under 7K, I usually fire him up. But with Marcus Smart in there, with Jaylen Brown in there, with Jason Tatum in there, I don't know if he's going to get to that 35, 40-point number as easily. So I'm not going to be as keen on Kemba. The guys I'm looking at Jaylen Brown, 8,000. That's a nice little mid-tier price tag, a little bit high on the price tag side, but he's coming off a 58-point game against the Knicks, 58 fantasy point game where he put up 30 and 10. I don't expect those kind of numbers, but Timberwolves do not play any defense. So Jaylen Brown can absolutely go off in this matchup. So I love Jaylen Brown at 8,000. And then I'll have a little bit of interest too in Jason Tatum at 9K. He's a guy that's been pretty much consistent all season long, coming off a 46-point effort against the Knicks too. Again, the matchup is key. I don't think anyone in the Timberwolves can really stop Jason Tatum in this matchup. So the only risk here is a blowout. Which is why I'm not going to have too much interest in anyone else just because of the blowout risk in this game. I don't think Timberwolves can keep it close in the second half. There's almost no chance. So that's the only reason why I'm looking at those two guys only on the Boston side.
Right. I normally look at Jaylen Brown, but his price just keeps creeping up, and it's kind of scaring me with everyone healthy. And, so. But he's obviously, like you said, last game he had 58 DraftKings points. That's incredible. So we'll see if that was a fluke or if he'll go back to his high 30s, low 40s points or not.
Absolutely. Awesome. So now after that nice little game total, we'll jump into the next game at 7:30 p.m. start. We got the Memphis Grizzlies traveling to the New York Knicks. The current spread total is 213.5, with the Knicks favored by half a point. As far as injuries are concerned, we have on the Grizzlies, Brandon Clark is doubtful in this one. Jaren Jackson Jr. continues to be out, as well as Anthony Melton and Justice Winslow. On the Knicks side, John Henson's out and Mitchell Robinson are both out. So when we're talking about this game, I'm going to be honest with you, Will. There's not a ton I like on either side of the ball, but jumping in on the Grizzlies side, I'm looking at two names and two names only. I'm going to have some interest in, and that's Ja Morant, starting point guard of extraordinaire, who's I think is going to really step up in this kind of primetime matchup. Coming off a 37-point fantasy game, which is, again, not his ceiling. He has shown in previous games, a couple weeks ago against the Utah Jazz, he put up 53 fantasy points. So he's a guy that can fill it up. He's a guy that should be able to do that, especially with some other guards in the Grizzlies out for this one. He should be able to put up a nice number against the Knicks. So I actually like Ja Morant. And then the only other guy I'm looking at really on the Memphis side is going to have to be Kyle Anderson. And I don't feel good about Kyle Anderson at all, but his numbers have been rock solid recently. Looking at his last 5 games, he's put up 40 points in 3 out of 5 and 30 in the other 2. So suddenly Kyle Anderson's the most consistent player on the Grizzlies side of the ball, which is even crazy to even say out loud. But so I like Kyle Anderson and Ja Morant. Do you like anyone on the Memphis side?
You hit my guys. Just before I get into it, since we just were talking about Boston, Kemba's at 6,900, Ja is at 7,100. Who would you prefer between those two?
Oh, that is so difficult. I'm honestly, right? I'm gonna have to ride or die on Ja Morant in this one. I like Ja Morant. $200 more expensive. What about you?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I know Santino hates playing anyone against the Knicks, but I think he should be fine. But yeah, the only you killed it with you nailed it with Kyle Anderson at 5,900. He's not a star. He's not a name you ever feel great about having in your lineup. But like you said, he's been very productive the last 5 games. And the other guy I'm looking at is Jonas Valanciunas. I think he's a player that, once again, like Kyle Anderson, you see the name, you don't see sexy, but when he plays, he's productive. I mean, he's pretty much averaging 20 points and 10 boards for the last 2 weeks. And so he has that 50 DraftKings point potential every game for me. So while he's still at 7,100, I'll consider it. You know, they don't have Mitchell Robinson against them. They're going to have Nerlens Noel and Taj Gibson. So that's not too scary for me. So those are the only two I'm really looking at. You could throw Dylan Brooks in your lineup if you want, but he'll probably disappoint you. So
Yeah, that's 100%, 100% of true. Every time everyone puts Dylan Brooks in lineups, it's always going to be a wild card. But I like the Jonas Valanciunas call. That's a great one. I wasn't even looking at Jonas, but to your point, the Knicks are just so beat up on the front court. He should be able to eat, and there's no reason why he can't get 20 and 15 in this one. So I love it. Love that call. Who do you like on the Knicks side of the ball? That's going to be a little bit trickier, I think.
Mm-hmm. With a 9-game slate, I normally love Julius Randle, and I think he's deservedly so, having the best year of his career, All-Star. But his price is creeping up a little too high for me at 9,900. Yes, he can get you 50, 60 DraftKings points, but I don't know. I just don't trust it. It's a pretty tough matchup. Memphis is a 7th-ranked defense, and they have their big guys for the most part. JV's going to be down there. So I would pass on him with this 9-game slate. If it was a 4 or 5-game slate, I'd probably consider him. And same thing for RJ Barrett at 6,600. His last game, he had 40 DraftKings points, 29 actual NBA points. That was great. But normally with RJ, he's a very inconsistent player. He has a great game, then he drops down to nothing. So it's too risky for me to lock and load him, but I can see you putting him in some lineups as contrarian. But yeah, he's not a guy that you're excited about having in your lineup either, but he could be productive for you. Yep. Any other Nick you're looking at?
Honestly, that's fair. Any interest in, let me throw out a name out for you, Nerlens Noel, 4,300.
See, I never can trust Nerlens Noel because it's like his production, like for fan, like if you're in a 9-cat league, you want him in your lineup because he's going to get you boards and blocks. But for DraftKings, that's going to get you 18 to 21 DraftKings points. And even though it's only 4,300, that's just not enough production. I want more of an upside than that. And, Thibodeau is not trying to play him 30, 40 minutes because he wants to play his boy, Taj Gibson. So
you're absolutely right. I just figured I'll throw it out there and see if you bite. But how right you are. Nerlens Noel is as GPP punt as you can possibly consider on this slate. So definitely prefer Mo Bamba if we're going to play that punt game tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. So the next game on the slate, we have 8 p.m. start. Chicago Bulls traveling to take on Atlanta Hawks. Should be a pretty nice game total and spread. Unfortunately, there's nothing out at this point. Talking about injuries, on the Hawks side, we have Clint Capella, who is questionable. John Collins continues to be out. Chris Dunn's out. Danilo Gallinari, is questionable in this one. DeAndre Hunter is out, and Cam Reddish is out. The Bulls don't have a injury report submitted at this point, but we can safely assume that they're going to have pretty much everyone healthy in this game outside of Gary Temple, who's out. Everyone else should be locked and loaded. So with that, who do you like, Will, on the Bulls side in supposedly an up-paced kind of game here?
Right. Yeah, that will factor who I like in this game. But I'm going to start off with Vucevic at 9,100. I think that's an incredible price for him. I think DraftKings has not caught up to his production yet. I mean, he could easily be a 10,000 price player, or like 9,900 like Julius Randle, because he's putting up as good production. He took he was a little slow to get to his normal form from Orlando when he came to Chicago, but he's ramping it back up now. He had 32 actual NBA points last game. So I think he's lock and load for your lineup. And Zach LaVine, he's a guy that has been on a slump lately, but his last 3 games he's been picking it up a little bit. And I think in this matchup, like you said, fast-paced matchup at 7,800, I think that's this is the time to use him. Because his DraftKings value was up to $1,000 more than it is right now. So at 7,800, now's the time to put it in your lineup, not when he's 8,800 in a slower paced matchup. So I think you can use him. Non-sexy names are like Thad Young at 6,200, Daniel Tice with backup minutes at 3,700. He can put up some stats for you. And a sneaky play would be Kobe White at 4,300, just because of the fast-paced game. He'll be running up and down with Trae Young, even though Satoransky will be in there. I think this game is more fitting for Kobe White, but that's just a hunch. The main two guys are Vucevic and Levine for me. What do you think?
Honestly, I think we're just our wavelength is so on point at this point in this early partnership we're having here. So I don't want to mess it up. So I'm just gonna say aligned and move on. But
Awesome.
but all jokes aside, I circle Kobe White as a nice little sneaky play like you mentioned because of the price tag and because he's coming back from injury and he should be able to get plenty of run in this matchup. And then Nicola Vuchovic, one of my favorite former Philadelphia 76ers, by the way. I throw that in every time I record because I want to remind our listeners that he was drafted by the 76ers. Love Vucevic. 9,100 is just a steal of a price. He was putting up 10,000 price tag type of games in Orlando, and he's still the main focus of their offense now that he's on the Chicago Bulls. So I love that. I think I'd sooner take Vucevic, to your point, versus Julius Randle in a heartbeat, and I'll take that 9,100 price tag right to the bank. I love that. Zach LaVine, I don't know what happened to the pricing at DraftKings, but ever since Vucevic came to town, Zach LaVine's numbers have really dropped off. But at 7,800, a guy that was putting up 40 and 50 fantasy points consistently as early as a couple of weeks ago, I don't foresee any reason why he can't get back to putting up those kind of numbers again. At 7,800, that price is just too good to pass up in this one. So love the Zach LaVine and Vucevic call, and I'm going to throw in Kobe White as my third favorite on the Bulls side. Who do you like on the other side of the ball in Atlanta with so many guys questionable or out in the front court?
Oh, yeah, and Trae Young, obviously at 9,200, he always has that 50-point potential, and no one's stopping him on the Bulls. And I like is Capella playing? He's still questionable, right? Questionable.
Yeah, yes. Capella's questionable at best right now. Yeah.
Right. If he plays and he's gonna play a full complement of minutes, I always think it's acceptable to put him in your lineup. But if he's questionable, probably doubtful. You can't look that way. Bogdan Bogdanovic at 7,000. I think he's worth the play. Last game, 41 DraftKings points, and in this up-tempo type of game, he should be productive. And if Capella is out, Okongwu at 4,000, I think is a steal. So keep an eye out on any updates on Capella because last game Okongwu played 32 minutes, had 34 DraftKings points, had a double-double with 13 points and 11 boards. So that production I could see staying the same or increasing. He's definitely going to get the blocks. He may have a tough time with Vucevic because he's so raw, but he's going to be out there getting the big minutes. So that's who I'm looking at on the Hawks. I don't trust, like Herter and Gallinari is questionable. So anyone else you're looking at on the Hawks?
Honestly, once again, absolutely in alignment. I don't even know if I even need to go into anything. So you nailed it. Trae Young, got to circle him, 9,200. He's going to be in play. He should be able to smash. Bogdan Bogdanovic, one of my favorite names in the league. At 7K, you mentioned. I mean, he's getting consistent minutes now. He looks like a bona fide starter now for the Hawks. Mm-hmm. He's getting the production. I mean, there's much else you can say about Bogdan. I think he was a great signing for them. And this is going to be a great matchup for him to really put up a 40, 45 point type of ceiling game. So I love that call a lot. And then you touched on it. Clint Capella's out. Onyeka Okongwu at 4,000. I definitely butchered that. Apologies. Apologies on that one. I'll try that again. Onyeka Okongwu at 4,000 is definitely going to be in play with Capella out. There's just so many guys in that 4,000 high, 3,000 price tag in the front court that are very much going to be in play on this slate. It's going to be a matter of which one of them you're more comfortable playing and which one fits your build better because there's a lot of value to be had in that price point range tonight. So it's something to keep in mind as we move forward for sure.
Yep, definitely. And I promise, guys, we are not copying off each other's paper.
Absolutely not. I don't even. Absolutely not. There's no video, nothing. This is all completely randomized. I promise. Awesome. So getting into before we get into the next game on our slate, I just wanted to share a quick reminder that we have to pause for an announcement, and it's a fun one. It's free stuff. Everyone loves free stuff. What's the stuff? The Bruise Letter is back. Oh yes, back and fresh for the 2021 NBA season. Our founder, Aaron Bruski, is running an email newsletter filled with his most intimate fantasy nuggets. It's exclusive content you cannot find anywhere else. 2, it's not on the website. It's not on any podcast, not on social media. It's only an email newsletter. And you can sign up to get it for free. Just go to bit.ly/BruiseLetter2021 and sign up in 10 seconds. Again, the site is bit.ly/BruiseLetter2021. Aaron Bruski, straight to your inbox. Enjoy. All right, well, let's jump into the next one. We have an 8 p.m. start. It's my favorite Philadelphia 76ers traveling to take on the New Orleans Pelicans in this one. As far as Vegas, we don't have a line at the moment. No spread or total here. As far as injuries are concerned, on the Philadelphia side, George Hill is still out. On the New Orleans side, Nickeil Alexander-Walker is out in this one. Lonzo Ball is questionable. Josh Hart is out as well, and Brandon Ingram is questionable, as well as Kyra Lewis Jr. is also questionable in this one. So, with all of these interesting plays that are happening on the Sixers side, I'd like to just jump in on the Sixers, if I may, and just dive in and talk about one name in particular, and that's Joel Embiid. He is back from injury, and I'm going to be looking heavily into Joel Embiid. That price tag is pretty good. I don't see any reason why Steven Adams is going to stop him. He played 33 minutes in the last one, and 29 minutes in the game before, so he should be able to get 35 minutes in this game against the Pelicans. Should be able to put up a monster game, 45, 50. He should have 50 fantasy points as the absolute floor in this type of matchup. So I love Joel Embiid. I'm going to have some interest. People are probably going to yell at me for this one, but Ben Simmons. I'm going to put in Ben Simmons.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
I know. Yeah, his numbers have been extremely off. I don't know what's been happening to him, honestly, as far as his playmaking. He's not getting the assists anymore. He's not getting the rebounds. So I think this is a great game for him to really have a nice bounce back. And you're not going to get Ben Simmons priced in the low 8K range very often. So, again, take advantage of pricing. Take advantage of pricing, my friends, because I love Ben Simmons here as a great GPP play. I don't think I'll trust him for cash, but for GPPs, a fantastic play. So I'm calling Ben Simmons there. And that's pretty much it on the Sixers. You can't really trust, in my opinion, anyone else. Really, Seth Curry is just not getting minutes. Furkan Korkmaz is also not getting minutes. Danny Green, a guy that definitely has fantasy point production upside, coming off a 27-point game in the last one. You can look at his way at 4,600, but I'm not going to have too much interest with so many other guys on this slate. So that's it for me on the Sixers. Who do you like on the Philly side of the ball?
Yeah, I think with Joel Embiid coming back, everyone else is kind of cannibalizing each other. Tobias Harris was very DraftKings friendly before Joel Embiid came back, but now I think he takes a knock. Simmons, like you said, has been going through just non-stat worthy production in games. I don't know if he just feels more comfortable with Joel Embiid out. But yeah, Joel Embiid is it for me at 10,100. I don't really trust anyone else. Like you said, there's other guys you could throw in as a contrarian like Ben Simmons, but it's just Joel Embiid for me. And like if you're comparing him to like Karl Anthony Towns at 10,900, I would take Embiid every time for $800 cheaper. And like his minutes are just going to keep ramping up, and he's going to get more comfortable out there. His production has been a little bit down because he's not getting the boards, but that'll come. So I would love to play Embiid tonight.
That's a great call. And again, I think all the listeners are going to agree with you that you can't trust anyone else on the Sixers. I am a diehard Ben Simmons fan since he came in the league, so I'm a little biased. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not. Whenever he plays, I try and have a little bit of exposure there. So that's on me though. But moving on to the Pelican side of the ball, with so many guys out and questionable, can you trust anyone outside of Zion Williamson? And do you trust Zion is a big question.
Yeah, Zion's price, has kind of been trickling up a little bit, so I don't really love it at 9,000. But if Brandon Ingram is out, I would say you could throw him in the lineup. And that Brandon Ingram determines a lot actually. So like you could probably play Eric Bledsoe at 6,400. He's a name that you look at and you're like, "Well," but last game he had 26 actual NBA points. That only led to 34 DraftKings points because he's not doing much else. But he's going to be out there to get that production. And a name you may have not heard is, let me say it right, Najee Marshall. I believe he's a rookie. He's been getting a lot of production with Brandon Ingram out, and he's at 3,900. He could easily get you in the mid-20s of DraftKings points. So you can go big on your lineup and throw him in there at 3,900. I think that's a worthy play because, like I said, with Nickeil Alexander-Walker out, Lonzo Ball questionable, Josh Hart out, Kira Lewis questionable, Brandon Ingram questionable. Najee Marshall is going to get those minutes and probably be productive as he's been being 2 out of the last 3 games. Who do you got on the Pelicans?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it. With so many guys questionable or out, I implore everyone to monitor the injury news up to the latest second, because there's no other way you're going to be able to really play on the Pelicans, because if everyone's out, Najee Marshall is a great call. 3,900 should get plenty of run. I used to play Bledsoe all the time. I was a big Bledsoe DFS player, but 6,400, that price tag is a little bit too high for me with Bledsoe, just because we haven't seen that same production that we used to see from Bledsoe back in the day. Again, I don't blame anyone for playing Bledsoe, and I totally think that it's a great call, especially with all these guys potentially out. But Bledsoe just doesn't seem like the same Bledsoe that came onto the scene earlier in his career. So that's something to monitor. I'm going to throw another name out there, and I'm going to probably have additional enemies for this one, but I'm going to have some interest in Mr. IT, Isaiah Thomas, who recently signed with them. He obviously has not been shooting well at all. He's shooting 30% from the field in about 22 minutes of action in his 2 games with the Pelicans, but this is a great opportunity for him to come in, especially if it is garbage time, because Sixers should be able to handle the Pelicans if they're injured. So I think Isaiah Thomas, if he shoots 45% from the field in this one, he should smash. And 4,700, that price tag is pretty good, in my opinion. So I'm going to have some shares of Isaiah if all the other guys that we mentioned are out.
Yeah, I mean, double digits in both his games after a year-long absence. So it's not a horrible idea. You also could look at James Johnson for the Pelicans. I mean, it's not fun, but if Ingram's out, you could throw him in there.
Absolutely. James Johnson, I mean, earlier this year on the Mavs, he was putting up some pretty nice numbers. People would forget. So he can certainly do that. So that's a great call, though. Great call. Awesome. So with that, I think we can jump into the later games. We have a 9 p.m. start time. We have your Charlotte Hornets taking on the Milwaukee Bucks in this game. There's no spread or total in this one as of yet. On the Hornets side, we have 3 guys that are out. LaMelo Ball, Gordon Hayward, and Malik Monk are all out, as I mentioned. And on the Milwaukee Bucks side, there's no actual injury report that has been submitted yet, but we already know that Giannis is actually questionable in this one. So that's something we really want to monitor as we get closer. If he ends up suiting up, then great. It looks like he is still on the questionable side. There hasn't been any updates yet in his tag, so that's something to really monitor. Who do you like on your hometown Hornets?
Well, with Gordon Hayward out, obviously LaMelo is out. I think Rozier, he's priced up right now. I guess because of those injuries, but he should be filling in with the production. But if you don't want to spend up to 8,500, you can go to Devontae Graham at 6,800. His production should be similar. Rozier might outscore him a little bit, but it won't hurt to have Devontae Graham in there at 6,800. Like you said, ever since LaMelo's been injured, his production has been increased dramatically because he was not having the greatest start to the season, especially with his field goal percentage. The only other guy I'm looking at, I never feel comfortable with PJ Washington or Miles Bridges. Every now and then they pop and have an amazing game, but more than likely they're up and down. The breakout star from last game was Jalen McDaniels, brother of Jayden Mcdaniels. He had 38.5 DraftKings points, 21 real NBA points, and 6 boards, 3 assists, and that was because Gordon Hayward is out. So they finally played someone other than the Martin twins, and it paid off. So at 3,300, I mean, that's probably the steal of the night. With him playing that well, there's no way they're going to take his minutes back down. He was playing single-digit minutes. Game before that, 17 minutes, and he finally got up to 32 minutes. There's no way I can see those minutes going back down after how great he played. So, I mean, that's pretty much a lock. But I don't trust anyone else. Who do you think for my Hornets?
Honestly, I think we're in alignment. The only guy that I'm having issues like playing potentially is Terry Rozier at that price tag, but someone has to put up points and someone has to be able to do everything for the Hornets. And we've seen earlier in the season with other guys actually healthy, he still put up 53 fantasy points. So Terry Rozier is certainly going to be someone that you can look at 8,500. I actually prefer Devontae Graham at 6,800 as far as the guards. Coming off a 35-point game against the Thunder, I like Graham. And then the final guy, I mean, you touched on it, Jalen McDaniels. I mean, he's going to be as chalk as they come and probably on the slate. At 3,300, he's pretty much a lock and load to build your lineup with all the superstars you can actually even think of, because Jalen McDaniels is going to be a guy that should be able to get run. And to your point, they absolutely found a nice little gem. And now they're not playing the Martin twins. It's a great call to have McDaniels in there, and he's been very productive in his limited floor time. So I love that call. And that's it for me on the Hornets too. I think we can jump right over to the Milwaukee Bucks, who we're still waiting on the questionable tag, as I mentioned, with Giannis. So it's going to be tough to really trust the Milwaukee Bucks. We have to monitor the news, and it's a late game start too. So it's going to be a little tough if you're going to be thinking about playing Giannis. If Giannis is good to go, lock him in at 10,800. That's a great price tag. I prefer that over Karl-Anthony Towns if he plays. But again, if he doesn't play, some other guys become a lot more appealing. Chris Middleton, 8,100, should be able to put up 45 to 50 fantasy points. Coming off a 41-point game without Giannis, should, again, as I mentioned, should have that upside. So I like Chris Middleton. And then I'm also looking at Drew Holiday at 8,400. It's also a nice price tag. If I have a choice with Giannis out between Rozier or Drew Holiday, I'm going to probably take the $100 in savings and go Drew Holiday in this one. And that's pretty much it. I'll have some interest in Bobby Portis at 5,700 if Giannis sits too. A guy that should get plenty of production, should get minutes close to 30 if Giannis is out, and a double-double threat every time he gets minutes. So those are the three guys I'm looking at on the Bucks side of the ball. Any agreement on the Bucks side?
Yeah, I totally agree. If you don't hear anything on Giannis early, I would keep him out of your lineup, because with that ankle, it's just a little too risky for me as expensive as he is at 10,800. So and if you do hear that he's out, like you just mentioned, Bobby Portis, I love that at 5,700. Right now, that's halfway through the second quarter, and he has 7 points, 5 rebounds. So I mean, that's gonna lead to a very productive night. Like you said, double threat. Whenever he's gonna get those minutes, I love Drew Holiday at 8,400. He recently was the Player of the Week. So his production has been amazing, especially with Giannis out, it's just even more opportunities for him. And you can throw in Middleton. I never enjoy playing Middleton. Every time I put him in the lineup, he does nothing. But every other game that he's not in my lineup, he does great. He's just one of those guys for me. But with Giannis out, I mean, it should be a guarantee that he'll be productive.
Yeah, it's tough. That price tag of Middleton, it never seems to drop low enough where it's comfortable, right? It's
Right.
always in that range. You're like, oh, I can't play him. But again, you just never know, especially against this in this matchup. So I love all those calls. So we'll have to see the Giannis news, how it plays out over that ankle. Hopefully we get some updates throughout the day, so we don't have to make those calls last minute with those swaps. So
Yeah.
awesome. Let's dive into the next one. We have a 9 p.m. start. San Antonio Spurs traveling to take on the Denver Nuggets in this one. The Battle of the Murrays, as I like to call it. There's no total or spread right now. But as far as injuries are concerned, in the Nuggets, Jamal Murray is actually questionable in this one. On the Spurs side, we have Keita Bates Diop, is out in this one, as well as Trey Lyles. Gorgie Dang is questionable, and Lonnie Walker is also questionable. All right, Will, who do you like on the Spurs side? And hopefully you're looking at one of the Murrays here.
Well, DeJounte Murray is kind of like one of those guys like Chris Middleton for me also. But obviously I have no qualms with you putting him in your lineup at 7,500. That's a good price. His last 4 games have been in the 30s, so that's not great as far as DraftKings points. But, he's going to be the starting point guard, so he always has that potential. DeRozan, same thing. His production has been down the last 3 games. So hopefully both of these guys pick it up and, start playing like they were earlier in the season. I think you can put Jakob Poeltl in your lineup. His production has been down also the last 2 games. But, they recently signed Gorgie Jing. But he is questionable. So if he doesn't play, I don't think that will hurt Poeltl. So I think Poeltl could possibly go back to his productive ways. But yeah, the Spurs have a ton of point guards and small guards. So I don't really trust too many of them. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't play anyone on the Spurs, honestly. It sounds like you like DeJounte, though. What do you think?
Honestly, that was more of a bait and switch there, because I just wanted to say that I like Murray, but I have very little interest in either Murrays in this game, actually. So
tried to get me.
Yeah, I wanted to feel it out there, but yeah, on the Spurs, you mentioned it. It's really tough to really trust anyone. Keldon Johnson is another guy I'm looking at for tournaments, but to the point of all the Spurs, the production has been down recently. He has not been putting up consistent numbers. He had 37 points against the Pacers a couple of nights ago. If he can get to that fantasy point number, then that's a great price tag. But I don't know if that'll happen against these Nuggets. So I'm probably not going to have a lot of interest in Keldon. Jakob Poeltl is the only other person. Jakob Poeltl is the only other guy I circled as far as a potential look on the Spurs. But his last 2 games he's been absolutely awful against the Nuggets, against this very same Nuggets too. So it's really hard to trust him in this one. So I'm good with fading the entire Spurs in this one. And we can jump into the Nuggets side. Any interest in anyone on the Nuggets, especially with Jamal Murray questionable?
Right. Yeah, you definitely got to keep an eye on that. I know they started Facundo Campazzo last game, so he's in play, but I didn't even circle him. But Jokic, obviously at 10,500, in my opinion, he's probably the front runner for MVP. So tremendous year. Nothing you can take away from him. He's pretty much a lock and load every lineup. Oh, here's a question for you: Jokic or Embiid? Let me see what you think about that, because I know you have that Philly bias. What do you think about that one?
Honestly, despite my Philly bias, I'm gonna have to go Jokic just for upside alone. So I'm gonna go Jokic.
Well, you can trust this man, fans. Okay, you can trust. Yeah, and with the addition of Aaron Gordon, that kind of we thought would take take away from Michael Porter Jr. He's kind of remained the same. Aaron Gordon was playing incredible 3 and 4 games ago, but the last 2 games his production has dropped off, and Michael Porter has not. So that's something that is interesting to keep an eye out on. So for right now, I don't think you can play Aaron Gordon, even though he's $1,000 cheaper. If you want to go that route, you would want to play Michael Porter Jr. right now, especially if Jamal Murray is out. Another guy that would benefit also is Will Barton at 5,400. Normally, Will Barton is the name that you look at and you're like, I don't want to put him in my lineup. But his last 4 games have been productive and valuable at that price point. So are you looking at Campazzo, or are you just like the guys I mentioned?
I'm with you again. Pretty much down the line. I'm not looking at Campazzo or Monte Morris. If Jamal Murray plays, I'm gonna have a little bit of interest in Murray, but at 8,000, there are much better, much safer guys to play on this slate. So I'm not gonna look there either. You touched on it, Mr. Will Barton, the other Will. Some may argue the lesser Will Barton. He is a guy that I love for season-long fantasy, and a guy that has been very consistent in DFS too. So I have a lot of interest in Will Barton at 5,400. No one seems to want to price him anywhere above 5,000, which is fine for me. So I'm gonna keep playing Will Barton at 5,400. I think he's a solid play. And you touched on it. Nikola Jokic is pretty much a lock and load on any game, any slate. Doesn't matter. He's good for 55, 60 almost on a nightly basis, and he's actually not the most expensive guy. He's not even the most expensive center on the slate, which is crazy to think too. So I'll take the savings on Jokic and run with it, and that's it. So I'm looking at Jokic and Will Barton only for me on the Nuggets side.
I can't argue with that.
Awesome. All right, so let's dive in then into the final 2 games of the night. The first game we have, it's a 10 p.m. start. It's Washington Wizards traveling to take on the Golden State Warriors. This game actually does have a spread finally and a total. It's a big one too. 240.5 as expected, with the Warriors favored by 3.5 points. As far as injuries are concerned, on the Wizards side, Bradley Beal is probable. He will be playing in this one. Thomas Bryant and Daniel Gafford continue to be out. And on the Warriors, as we know, Eric Pascal is out and Klay Thompson is also out. All right, Will, knowing that this has the highest potential spread and total of this, highest potential total of this slate, who do you like on the Wizards side of the ball with Bradley Beal back in the mix?
Well, Bradley Beal being back in the mix kind of scares me off of him. With that hip, it's been a lingering hip issue, so, and he's listed as probable, but how much will he play? I've heard, this hip could be something that could lead him to missing games in the future, to being rested a lot more. So I don't think they're going to, just throw him out there, no minutes restriction at all. I think they're going to have to be really careful with that hip because that could be a big problem. So at 9,300, I'm scared off of Beal. I could see you putting him in your lineup because he's had an incredible season. He was a scoring leader for a long time. He may still be, but I don't trust it with that hip. You obviously have to look at Russell Westbrook, the walking triple-double. Even though he's at 11,000, the highest price of the night, he's just pretty much a guarantee for production, almost 70 DraftKings points a game. So you can't go wrong there. And like you said, with the highest scoring potential, that's only more stats for Russell Westbrook, who's the stat monster. I think you can look at Denny Avdia at 4,900. His minutes has been ramping up. He was their first-round lottery pick. So, I mean, they should want to keep getting a look at him for next year about what he's going to do. I think he's a decent play. And another guy that's been back from injury is Ish Smith at 3,800. He should be in line to get you at least 20 DraftKings points. He's taking away minutes from Raul Neto now, so I think he's got that backup role back and guaranteed down. So those are the 4 guys I'm looking at. Obviously, Denny and Ish are more like a question mark play, but just considerable. So what are you looking at on the Wizards?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely touched on a couple guys that I'm looking at for sure. Russell Westbrook, 11K. I know that price tag might scare people, but look at his numbers to your point. I mean, he's 80 point fantasy upside. Just the amount of production that he's putting on his shoulders right now for the Wizards is astounding. So I love Russell Westbrook at 11,000. And then great call on Ish Smith as well at 3,800. I think he's going to be a sleeper pick and going to be very low owned, I imagine, just given the fact that a lot of people realize he's back playing and he's going to take a lot of minutes back from Neto, as you mentioned. So I like that call. And then you mentioned Danny Avdija. The only other guy I'm actually looking at over Avdija is another guy coming back from injury, and that's Davis Bertans at 4,300. That's a very juicy price tag, and his shooting stroke has returned too, and he's put up 30 fantasy points over his last 2 games. So I expect to continue to ride the hot hand, especially in a shootout type of game. Especially regardless of score, I think Davis Bertans should get 20-25 minutes off the bench. So I love him a lot. At 4,300, I think that's a great price tag. One of my favorite low 4K plays on the entire slate, actually. So those are the big guys that I'm looking at on the Wizards side of the ball. I'm not going to have too much interest in Alex Len at 4,600. I think that price tag is outrageous after coming off a 7-point effort. I don't think he's anywhere near that reliable, so I'm not going to be looking there. So that's it for me too on the Wizards. Go ahead.
That's a great call on Davis Bertans. I mean, he's a guy I look at his name and I just completely ignore him. I just don't even want to see him. I just scroll away. But his last 2 games were very productive. But like I would say, Davis Bertans and Robert Covington have probably had the weirdest years I've ever seen. I mean, these guys are just up and down. You just never know what's going to happen. And we'll see. Davis Bertans could be on the road to be back to his normal self, or he can come up with single-digit points next game. So we'll see. But that's a great call on him.
Yeah, honestly. And you know what? If anyone has any issues playing Davis Bertans, you can come find me on Twitter. So feel free to call me out because I recommended it. So if it burns anyone, I'll take full responsibility. So awesome. Going on to the other side of the ball, we're looking at the Warriors that are pretty much healthy at this point for the most part. Who do you like on the Warriors side? The question is, can you play Steph Curry at 9,900 is the first question I have.
I definitely think you can play Steph Curry at 9,900. He can easily put up the same type of production as Russell Westbrook at $1,100 cheaper. And playing against Westbrook, I think it's going to be a matchup of the point guards. They'll probably go at it and have an incredible battle. So I think it's worth it for him. I mean, Steph is one of the all-time great players. And, I liked Wiggins early in the season, but he's been slacking lately. So I look at Draymond at 6,700. I think he has motivation to put up potential. He's been making the news lately with his interview with Kevin Durant. But I think, he easily can put up all-around stats. Kelly Oubre has been ramping up his production at 6,300, and it's a revenge game for him. I think you could play him in this matchup. And you can look at James Wiseman at 4,800. I wouldn't put him in my lineup, but, I mean, he's there for you. His last game, he got 32 DraftKings points, so that's what we're looking for. But that's just rare, few and far in between with him. But hopefully he can start being more productive in the future. So those are the 4 guys I'm looking at.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much in sync across the board. The only guy that I'm not looking at out of those guys is probably going to be Andrew Wiggins. I love the Steph Curry call. I'm going to probably try and figure out a way to play Steph Curry and Westbrook and just watch my fantasy DFS numbers go through the roof, hopefully, just given this matchup. It should be an absolute fireworks show. So I love this. I love the Steph Curry call. Kelly Oubre, 6,300. I didn't even circle the fact that it's a revenge game, so that's a great call, Will. and I think that alone is enough for me to play Kelly Oubre. But I know a lot of people are not into the revenge game narrative. I think it'll play here, so Kelly Oubre should be able to go off in this one. So I love that. And Draymond at 6,700 is always going to be a guy that you can plug and play, just given his triple-double upside. He hasn't really been showing a lot of it recently, but he did have a 48-point effort a few games ago against the Heat. So I love Draymond Green. So it's going to be a very juicy, stackable game here. So you can't go wrong with any of the guys mentioned. Cool. So before we jump in to our final game of the night, I just wanted to do a quick shout out to the Fantasy Pass. Now that the fantasy draft season is over and you Brewski 150 your way to a hell of a team, hopefully a team ready for playoffs, this season is deep in the midst. The Fantasy Pass is everything you'll need to dominate for the remainder of the year. Updated projections, new fantasy appraiser tools, schedule and streaming charts, pickups and drops. The Hoopball Discord server, where you can hang out with all of the Hoopball pros, including myself and Will, around the clock and get one-on-one help with your team. So please do check it out. Head to hoop-ball.com and click on the Fantasy Pass. And just below the main media wall, you will find it. Awesome. So let's dive in without further ado to the next and final game of the slate, and that's the Houston Rockets traveling to take on Los Angeles Clippers. It's a 10 p.m. start time. No spread or total. Big surprise tonight. And as far as injuries are concerned, there's no injury news to report at this point. So with that said, Will, who do you like on the Rockets, and can they keep this within 30 points in this game?
Right. That is the question. It'll be interesting. And John Wall is out.
You're right. John Wall is out. Apologies.
No, you're good. That's really important for Kevin Porter Jr. I think that makes him a safer play. His price point is 7,000. You wish that was in the 6,000, but with John Wall out, it should be a little easier to put him in your lineup. And early in the season, you would look at Christian Wood and say it's a lock to put him in your lineup. But he's kind of taken a tiny hit with Kelly Olynyk being added to the team. And I mean, Kelly Olynyk is just getting all the minutes he can handle. It seems like the Rockets are like, yeah, we didn't trade Oladipo for nothing. We got Kelly Olynyk and he's being productive. So Olynyk, you could throw in your lineup at 6,000 and probably feel better about it than putting Christian Wood in your lineup at 8,500. Those are the only three guys I'm looking at. I like Kenyon Martin Jr., but I don't know if it's safe enough to play him right now. What do you think about the Rockets?
Yeah, as far as I couldn't find the unmute button there. As far as the Rockets, you nailed it. Christian Wood just looks a little off. So normally we would say Christian Wood, lock and low 8,500, but I'm not going to have a lot of interest in him. Kelly Olynyk at 6K. Normally, look at Kelly Olynyk and you see 6,000, you're like, whoa, let's not do it. But Kelly Olynyk in a Rockets uniform looks like he's been unleashed. Whatever unleash means for Kelly Olynyk, it just means suddenly he's a different player. He's knocking down shots. He's getting rebounds at a high rate. He's getting some blocks, some steals here and there. So Kelly Olynyk at 6K is probably going to be in play for me. Kevin Porter Jr. with John Wall out, as you mentioned, is also going to be in play. But that's it. Despite the Rockets not having a lot of production, there's just not so many ways you can go, just given all these question marks up and down the Houston roster. Sterling Brown is also a nice GPP type of play at 4,400, but a guy coming off 14-point effort against the Mavericks, you just never know what you're going to get with a guy like Sterling Brown. So I'm going to be hesitant to play him. So the only two guys I'm really looking at are going to be Kelly Olynyk and Kevin Porter Jr., and that's it. On the Rocket side, especially in a blowout type of game, I don't see any reason why some of the other guys that are priced at a more reasonable level are not going to get around. Like Jayshawn Tate is a guy that I was playing in lineups at 6,500. He's not as appealing. When he was 5,500, he was appealing. Now it's tough to play him. So that's my final piece on the Rockets.
I was going to ask you
Awesome.
how you felt about Jayshawn Tate. So, yeah, that was a good call.
Yeah. So it's again, I don't fault anyone for playing some of these guys. It's just so hard on the Rockets. So with that said, let's jump over to the Clippers side of the ball. Who do you like on the Clippers given the potential blowout here?
Yeah, that does scare you. If it's not a blowout, Kawhi and Paul George both could get you around 50 DraftKings points, just depending on the night. So if you don't want to spend up for Kawhi, you can save 1,200 and play Paul George. But yeah, you don't have to force them in your lineup if you do think this is going to be a blowout, though, especially with John Wall out. So that's just up to you. That's a matter of personal opinion. Demarcus Cousin has been added to this Clippers team. His first game back, he only had 7 points and 4 rebounds in 8 minutes. So, I mean, that's really productive in 8 minutes. We'll just have to see if his minutes go up. So you can't play him yet, but he's a guy to monitor. Terrence Mann was a guy that was playing great, but his production has dropped off tremendously. You could look at Rondo and Reggie Jackson and Patrick Beverly, but you would just be wasting your time. So that's all I have with the Clippers. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it. It's a real test of I think will and how you think you're gonna see this matchup playing out, because if it stays close, you touched on it. Kawhi and Paul George are going to be low owned and they should smash. But if this game ends up being a blowout, which I expect Vegas is going to tell us it's going to be a 15-point spread minimum potentially. So with that said, it's going to be hard to trust anyone. I like Paul George. If we're looking at two of their studs, I'm looking at Paul George over Kawhi just because of the cost savings alone make it worth it for me. Just to take a shot at Paul George coming off a 52-point effort against the Blazers. I like Paul George a lot. So that's it for me on the Clippers. Reggie Jackson, I'll take some looks at just because he had a very productive game in the last one, but it's just really tough to trust any of those guards you mentioned night in and night out basis. So it's fine baiting a lot of Clippers tonight. I think you can't go wrong playing some of them, but no reason to force anyone into your lineups.
Yeah, I would say the last 3 games the Clippers were in blowouts. Paul George and Kawhi both got DraftKings points in the 30s. So that's something to look at.
Absolutely. No, that's a fantastic call. Awesome. So that wraps up the 9-game slate. Before we kind of head out of here, who do you like, Will, as your favorite high-priced guy, your favorite mid-tier guy, and your favorite value play on the slate?
All right, high-priced guy, we're going to say over 8,000 probably. I would probably go with Vucevic for the Bulls at 9,100. I love his, potential. Like you said, he can put up Jokic numbers at a non-Jokic price. And you can mention Steph also. I think he'll have a great matchup. Who do you have for your one or two high-priced guys? You have anyone?
Yeah, as far as I don't want to be redundant and name the same guys you name. So it's going to make it a little bit more challenging. So
well, name your Philadelphia guy.
No, I can't. I can't. Remind me not to go second again. So
okay.
I am going to have to go with Nikola Jokic at 10,500. I think he should absolutely smash. So I'm looking his way. And if I'm going to throw a second one out there that we didn't discuss, I guess I'll plead the fifth and go with Steph Curry, and just because you touched on him very briefly, so I'll consider Steph Curry as my second pick.
All right, mid-tier guys, let's say 4,500 to 8,000. You go first on this one. Who you got?
Ooh, okay, 4,500 to 8,000. All right, this is going to be interesting. I'm going to have to go with. This is something that I really should have prepared for. Kyle Anderson. I can't believe I'm saying that out loud. Kyle Anderson,
right?
5,900. Oh my God, he is one of my favorite mid-tier plays. And then the other one is gonna have to be TJ McConnell at 5,600. Those are my two guys, and I'm taking those to the bank. What about you?
So non-sexy, I'm telling you, David. But I'm gonna go with Zach LaVine at 7,800. I think he has a great matchup against the Hawks. And if I had to throw someone else out there, I'd probably say Jonas Valanciunas at 7,100. Even though it's against the Knicks, I like his potential.
Didn't we just talk about non-sexy players?
I know, right? Yeah. That's
all right.
Sexy.
Right. All right. So, who do you like as far as value under 4,500 in that case? If you can name two guys.
I'm gonna name one, and so I don't steal anyone from you, and then I'll name a second one after you go. So I gotta go with my guy Jalen McDaniels for the Charlotte Hornets at 3,300. Guys like this, I think, are the reason why this podcast needs to be listened to, because that's a guy you're not going to notice, not going to be on your radar unless you're deep into fantasy in a deep league or listening to this podcast. So I think Jalen McDaniels is probably the steal of the night. Who do you have as your under 4,500 guy?
I mean, I felt like that was an easy setup for you. That was almost too easy. That was almost too easy.
You knew I had to go with my guy.
Of course. So I'm going to go, in that case, I'm going to have to go with, and this one's going to be a little bit more interesting, but I'm going to go with Kobe White at 4,300. In a great matchup, I think he should smash, and he's going to be low owned too. So I think Kobe White's going to be a great play at that price tag.
Yep. Another guy I could name is Gogo Bitadze at 3,800. If keep an eye on if Miles Turner and Sabonis are out, and I think he could be a tremendous play for you. You have one more, or is that it?
Honestly, you just took another. You've already taken two of them in this value play, so now I have to rework my whole brain. So give me a second. I'm going to have to go with Onyeka Okongwu at 4,000. I butcher his name, but I'm still going to play him. So I think he's going to be a great play at that price tag. If Clint Capella's out, even more reason to play him. Love that price tag. Should absolutely smash. So I think that wraps it up. And I want to just thank you, Will, for jumping on, and I'm really looking forward to doing more of these with you. And I want to thank all the listeners for listening in to DFS today. You can find me on Twitter at dmank33. Why don't you tell everyone how they can find you as well on Twitter?
Yep. I'm on Twitter at William is Bill. Thank you, David. Great doing the show with you. I loved it. Can't wait to do the next one. And thank you guys for listening.
Absolutely. Have a great night, everyone. Let's all win some serious cash games.
Peace.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.